Hey, all back for another episode. So we are done working on the outside and the inside of the camper. Let me show you where we're stopping, and this episode we're going to get back on the motor.
No, you're not bringing home another piece of junk.
Okay, so all is back together. The trim is all up. Made that little shelfie thing up there. We got to paint when we paint this. There's a little upholstery work to go back that is still it's sitting back there, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Cleaned everything out, vacuumed everything out. The big pile of junk over here is gone, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm at a stopping point where we can leave her sit for a while. And I found the leak. I went back over my caulk joints and found a couple little spots I missed, and I'm pretty sure we're in good shape now. So, and out here I was missing this grill for the back of the fridge, so that's actually a return air grill from Lowe's. I just whacked it and welded it together back there, and screwed her on, and $27 later we're back in business. Okay, so let's take a look at the engine and what we're going to do with that. Yeah, I got parts on order for it, so let's pick up where we left off on it. All right, so we have been busy today cleaning out here, and ooh, it looks so much better. There's a truck. She's sitting there sad, waiting for something to happen, but it's all right. We're gonna be back on you soon, baby. Don't worry. So anyway, I did a bunch of cleaning out here. This whole bed had filled up with the RV stuff, so we cleaned it out. I shoved my piece of sheet metal in there. That's 14 gauge I got for the floors and the motor doghouse, and so put that stuff back there. Cleaned up all in here. Unboxed my new heater, so I got to get that put up. I just had stuff out here that I hadn't opened up. My wife got me this months ago, and I had never put it together, so I put it together, and swept, and organized. Engine parts came in. We're going with the Engine Tech 159.95 eBay basic engine re-ring kit. So you get gaskets, you get rings, you get I got my 10 over rods, my 20 over mains, made in Israel. How about that? Right on. Got some Christian rod bearings. Good deal. And okay, so what else was I going to show you? Something. I don't remember what it was now. Oh, got a stack of parts over here. So we got a new balancer. That was all chewed up. Timing chain, oil pump, head bolts. I did get different push rods because the ones that are on there just are really scuzzy, and it's the Gen 5 uses the 5/16 small block with push rods, so I got the big block 3/8 push rods, and then I got a freeze plugs and a couple of other doodads. So what I'm gonna do on this thing, I've decided to go ahead and reuse this cam, and I'll tell you why. For one, there was like no wear at all on the lifters. I mean, I put a straight edge across the bottom of them. They were perfectly flat. They looked good. The cam lobes looked good. And another thing, I don't know if anybody has messed with Gen 5 big blocks. This is the first one I've messed with. But if you were here for the disassembly video, you saw that these are not adjustable. These are fixed studs. So here's the deal. I did a bunch of checking. The Gen 5 TBI big block, they've got pretty light valve springs in them, and this is basically to put any aftermarket cam in here, you have to convert these to adjustable, and there's a couple different routes to go that, so that's a couple $100, and then the price of the cam, and then they recommend you upgrade the push rods, which we did that anyway. And so by the time you do all that, it ends up being, I don't know, you're looking $500. And I wanted a really mild cam anyway, because this is just going to be, just going to be to pull that big beast around. I thought this cam is probably fine for what we're going to do with it, just to pull an RV around. This is the stock cam they would have used anyway. But I got the lifters mixed up when I took them out because I thought I was going to throw them away. Plus, they kind of had that gooey water oil sludge in them. So we're just going to go with the original cam and a new set of lifters. So that's the route we're going to go. Anyway, what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this outside. I'm going to wire brush all the outside off. We're going to knock the freeze plugs out of it. I'm going to go down and pick me up a stone hone from Harbor Freight. I got a ball hone around here, but it's for a 4-inch bore. This is a bigger bore, won't work on that. And we'll do that. Then I'm going to take some Dawn dishwashing soap and just scrub this thing down real good and hose it down again, dry it off with air, and pre-lube everything. And then we're going to test fit the crank. So just want to make sure all that grit is cleaned up and out of there. And when I clean it, wire brush the outside of this, we're going to have some flying stuff. So let me do all that, do all the cleanup, and get this thing clean. And then we'll drop the mains in it, and we'll test fit our new crank with some plastic gauge and see what this baby looks like. Okay, another tidbit of information before we start cleaning. So if you remember back to the disassembly video, this thing had an oil cooler here, and it had like this 90-degree thing on it for the oil cooler, which I think I threw it away. But what I wanted to do was put just a standard oil filter on this thing, because I just don't think I need an oil cooler. I didn't want to mess with it. So the taps came off of here, and I looked it up. What you got to do is you got to put plugs in these. So I found a couple plugs that'll fit this. Now, there's a couple of check valves in here. So there's one in here. There's also one down in there. And what you do is you take is that a 3/8? Yeah, 3/8 fine thread bolt, and it'll thread into this. And then you just take a pair of vice grips and you can tap this check valve out of there. So you do that, you plug those, and then you order one of these, which that's the part number. This is made by Engine Quest. And it's just this little adapter, and this thing was like $9. And it screws into here, like so. You run that down, your oil filter screws on there, done, and you plug those. So that is how you convert your Gen 5 or Gen 6 big block from an oil cooler to a standard oil filter. Now let's wire brush this thing off and clean her up. All right, so I've been out here cleaning on this block, and mostly good news. I got 7 really good looking cylinders, and this one, I don't know if you can see that right there, that's where that piston was stuck from having water in there. And there's definitely some pits in it right there that won't hone out. But it is just not in the budget to bore this block out and put a set of pistons in it. Probably what should be done, but we're just, the cab costs way more money than what I thought, which is usually how everything goes. So we're going to use it, And fingers crossed, say some prayers, hope for the best. Just hope that cylinder holds compression. All the rest of them look great. And like I said, this is all standard, and there's nothing up here. They all honed out real good, cross-hatched real good. Was gonna put an aluminum intake on it, but I thought I'm using the stock cam, I'm using the Q-Jet. I'm not gonna spring for an aluminum intake. So I found this regular old stock cast iron Gen 3 or Gen 4 454 intake, Q-Jet style. I think I paid 25 bucks for it off of Marketplace. So we are going to use that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, that, the heads, the oil pan, probably the valve covers, a couple other things out to the driveway. We're going to whip out the power washer, and we're going to degrease all that stuff, and we're just going to kind of de-grit this because I've pretty much already degreased it and scrubbed it, and it's just got a lot of grit on it now from honing it, and I went around and wire brushed everything off. So we'll get that all cleaned off, and then we'll I'll just take some rags and some oil and wipe down the machine surfaces so they don't rust. And I think I got a spring compressor, so I guess we'll go ahead and put, we got valve seals with the kit. We'll go ahead and put valve seals in, and I want to pull these valves out of that cylinder anyway for sure, and just make sure that the that rust from the water being in the cylinder hasn't ate the seats up. The way the way it's going, that's probably not looking so good, but we'll see how that goes. So okay, let's get this all cleaned up, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, now I am really cold. Man, that wind is brutal. And leaves were attacking me while I was trying to blow too. So, all right, we got most of the goo off this stuff, good as it's gonna get. All right, let's drag it all back inside and see what we got. Okay, so we got her all cleaned up, cylinders oiled. Got machine surfaces oiled, and I got the crank sitting in there with the new bearings. No lube on it yet. We're just going to put some plastic gauge on and do a clearance check on these. Should be fine, freshly ground crank, but you know, it's never hurts to check. So we're going to do that, and then that's all I'm going to do tonight. I got to go get some different rags, and I need some assembly lube. I bought those. Be careful when you buy rags. I bought these and didn't realize they're not cloth, they're paper, and they leave fuzz on everything, so those are no good. I'm gonna go get some cotton rags tomorrow. And just about out of Ultra Slick, so we need some more Ultra Slick, but we can put the bearings on it, torque them, bust them loose, and see what our plastic gauge reading is. So let me look up the reading. We'll check this out, and then we'll pop back in and see what they look like. Okay, so we torqued all the caps down, and then we popped them back off. And if you're wondering, 4-bolt main 454 caps torqued down to 110 foot-pounds, all 4 bolts. So if we look, most of our plastic gauge is like 002. Those all look pretty good. Now the rear one is 003. It's tighter. But yeah, I read that on a couple websites that you want your rear main to be a little bit tighter for oil, better oil pressure. So looks like we're in good shape. All right, so I'm gonna pop that crank back out. I'm gonna assembly lube both halves of the bearing. We're gonna set it back in there, and we're gonna put the torque to it, and then that is all we are going to do for tonight. So let me get that done, and we'll take another peek here. Okay, so that's good for tonight. We're all torqued down. Everything moves nice and smooth. All right. So, got to pick up a few supplies tomorrow, and then I have got the pistons and all of the rocker arm pieces, and that's soaking in some diesel fuel. So, I'll start cleaning them up and get the new rings and bearings on those and get those put in. So, all right. So, I guess that's gonna be it for now. We'll pick this up tomorrow. All right. Good morning, everybody. So, I still had a couple of small leak areas on this thing. We had, you know, every time it rains, I come out here and kind of check everything, and I had one little area up in that corner, and I had one little area here, and I had one little spot over there where you could tell there was some water seeping in. So I just like microscopically went back over every caulk joint on this thing, and I ended up cutting some of them out and redoing them. And then you can see like you've got this insert strip here. It's supposed to snap in there and be a watertight seal, but I just went ahead and ran some caulk on both sides of it. Just kind of went over everything that I could possibly see would be leaking, because when you watch when it was raining, the water would come down here and it would like hug under here and then drip off here. So it's like, what the heck, you know? There's a lot of caulk on this thing, so I just kind of redid them all, and I'm hoping for the best that we got it this time. But I wanted to seal this plywood also, so I got did a little online research. What's the best sealer you can use for you know, the waterproof plywood? And one of the ones that came up was this stuff, polycryl. So that's what we put on there. I soaked in a big heavy coat last night, another big heavy coat this morning, and I got almost a quart on this thing. So, you know, took a brush and shoved it down in the edges over there, and just want to make sure that kind of protect that wood. So this is my first. I've done a lot of home repair, but this is my first shot at RV repair, so I guess I'm kind of learning as I go. Okay, so that's kind of all we're gonna do out here today. I might get out here today because we got some warm weather. I might start pulling some things off this engine. You know, I may pull the distributor out, maybe pull the carburetor off, unhook a few things, take advantage of the warm weather. But for the most part, I think we're going to be putting the motor together. Looks like the crank went in good. Let's go back to the shop and I'll show you what I got back there. Okay, block is ready to put the pistons back in, and I went through yesterday and cleaned all these pistons, scraped out all the ring grooves. Use the old tried and true method of break an old ring in half and scrape them out. And I'll tell you what, interesting, that first groove, the carbon scraped out real easy. The second groove, I was bearing down to get that stuff out, but I finally did get it clean. My hand is killing me from doing 8 of those pistons. So, and also new heaters up, yay! Just got to hook it up. But anyway, let's go ahead and break out the rings, and we'll start putting this thing back together and see how far we get with it today. I'd like to get all 8 pistons back in, but and I got to see if I got a piston ring compressor that'll do that big piston. I got an adjustable one. I think it will, but Okay, so let's get rolling. All right, a little deviation as far, as my luck goes. When I went to take this water neck off, not one bolt broke, both bolts broke. So what I did is I put a nut on there and I welded it down on there. So we're gonna see. Here are my gloves. We're gonna see, did the heat from the welding and the bunch of PB blaster, and did it break those studs loose? I hope so. These are no fun to drill out, and you never get them centered right when you drill them out. At least I don't. Let's see what we got. No, baby, don't break, please. Ah, there we go. Yep. 1 for 2. Bring it on. That works like 50% of the time. All right, I'll take that. Number 2, yes. Come on. I feel a little bit of movement. I don't know if it's movement of the nut breaking off or movement of the stud coming loose. Steady, even pressure is the key. Don't bear down it. Oh, it's moving. It's moving. I can see the crud coming out from underneath it. Come on, baby. You know you want to. You know you want to. Wow, it worked on both of them. That usually does not happen. I know back when I put that 283 together for the 61, I broke one of these off on that aluminum intake, and man, it took a long time to get that thing out of there, but I finally did, huh? Right on. Thank you, Jesus. Yes, I'm giving Jesus credit for that working. Okay. Also on the 61, it is for sale. So it's been on Marketplace a while. I've dropped the price a little bit. It's been on eBay. I would like to pocket at least $9,000 off of it. And you guys have seen the videos of the cars. There's lots of videos on it. Neat car, not completely done. Needs some interior work. But if I can't get 9 out of it, I'm going to hang on to it and finish up the interior. But if you're interested, leave a comment here, and would love to pass it on to a new owner. Just, I got a shop for 2 projects, and I got 2 in here and 1 outside. So I'm ready to move on from this one, send it down the road to the new owner. And then I would really like to find something pre-war, like 42 or older, for my my next project. But we are going to get back on the truck here and get this thing going too. Man, that's a good looking truck. I gotta get back on that thing. Okay, so anyway, back on the engine. And on the last video clip, I said something that I didn't realize was wrong until I went back and listened to myself. So the back main, the plastic gauge, was at 20 thousandths, and it was 30 thousandths on the rest. So in my brain, I was like, okay, well, that's supposed to be a little bit tighter for that oil cap. But it's like, no, 20 thousandths is a little looser. So I'm gonna pop that rear main. I mean, it's like right on the border of being okay, and it's a fresh ground crank and new bearings. I'm just gonna pop that rear main cap off and just make sure there's not a burr or a piece of crud or something underneath that cap that might have held it up a little bit that um, kept it from squishing down as much as it should. I mean, it's 20,000. It's okay. We can live with it for what we're doing, but I just want to double check. And you know, double check after I've lubed up the crank and put it all together. What the heck is falling out of there? Oh, that's junk falling out of the water jackets. I popped the freeze plugs out and power washed them, so there's we got a little water jacket crud in there. All right, let me pop this off. We'll take a look at it, re-inspect, and then we'll see what we got. Okay, so I don't see any problems. Just kind of feeling around here. Is there something sticking up? Is there an edge on the bearing? No, we're good there. Is there any crud here in the where the bearing cap goes? A little piece of sealer there, but that's nothing. A little bit over here. That's probably nothing. But we'll get it out of there. So that's good. Let's take a look at the cap. Yeah, I don't see anything. Oops, here's the cap. I don't see anything on the cap. No edge on the between the bearing and the cap. All right, so it probably is just what it is, or so I think we'll be fine with it. But just want to double check. You know, it's one of those things that you lay in bed. It's like, should I check it again? Should I not? Should I check it again? Should I not? So I thought for the 2 minutes it takes, we'll check it again. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this cap back on, torque it back down, and then we are going to, I want to wipe out these cylinders again because I just kind of had some not so hot oil in those. Make sure we got all the crud out of them. I picked up a couple of gallons of oil that I'm going to use. Good old Rotella. And we will oil the cylinder down. We'll put the rings on the pistons, and we'll start putting those guys in. So, all right, let's do that, and we'll take another look. Okay, so a couple of things with its engine, and this was kind of disappointing to me, but this one cylinder that had the blown head gasket that had the water sitting in it, it's got an area there you can feel that's kind of stained. And I just honed it, and it's you know, I don't think it's going to hurt the rings. I think it's going to run fine, but it could possibly pull a little oil there and smoke a little bit. I hope not, but you know, when you're doing a project like this, for me, I set a budget, and that's kind of where I got to end up, and I kind of got a budget in mind for the engine. And honing the cylinders out or boring it out and putting all new pistons in it is just not there. So we're going to go with it. All the other cylinders look really good. And then right here is where the head gasket blew. And there's a little pitted area there on that water jacket. Probably where that head gasket was leaking before. So again, the right thing to do would be to take the block and have it decked. Get rid of that little area there, but not in the budget. So what we're gonna do is somewhere up here I got copper coat for gaskets, which I usually use anyway, and we're gonna coat those gaskets with copper coat and crank them down. I know I've done that on videos before, and people are like, yeah, you can't put that copper coat on those composite gaskets. It's like, I've been doing it for years, never had a problem with it. So, you know, this is kind of it's a backyard build for sure, and you take some chances, but we're gonna go with it. You know, I'm looking at purpose built here. It's The thing's probably going to get driven once or twice a month, hour, couple hours from home. You know, I think it's going to be okay. So, fingers crossed. I'm talking myself into it. All right, let's get some pistons in here, and we'll take a look at what we got. All right, well, I hate when you thought you hit the play button and you sit here doing stuff and explain it, and then you realize you didn't hit the record button. So anyway, we got number 8 in here, bearing inserts in there. Got it snugged down. I want to torque it down, and then we'll pull that cap off, and we'll look at what the plastic gauge looks like, and then we'll drop that down and lube that bearing up and retorque it. So you got to do that while it's dry. With a dry bearing. So I don't have the torque spec. I probably should have looked it up online first, but let's look. This is a really old book, but I can't believe the torque spec on a big block is that much different now than it was then. Let's see, Chevrolet Corvette torque spec. So we use a Corvette torque spec and it'll run like a Corvette. That's what I'm thinking. 66 to 72, 427, 454. Cylinder head bolts. Let's see, what was the main bearing bolts? Actually, they were a little less on this. No, because it said main bolts 100 pounds. Engines with 4 bolt main 115 pounds. Now they called on the newer one for 110 pounds, so close enough. Let's look at rod bearing bolts. 50 pounds with a note for number 4. What's number 4? 7/16 rod bolts, 70 pounds. Are these 7/16 rod bolts? They are not. They're 3/8 rod bolts. So let's torque that down, and for some reason when I put this phone on this stand, it sometimes shuts off, and I gotta watch that. And it did not that time. Good. I think I just hit the button or something. Anyway, so let's 9 to 9/16. I think that is. Yep. I'll just say 50. Yeah, that's pretty hefty. Small block's like 35. No, that's 40. No, I want 50. Passed it up. I said 35 and I started going down to 35. There we go. Let's see what we got. Let's give them a little bit more first. Yeah. Okay. Bring it back loose. We'll look up the oil clearance spec and see what we got. The guy that did this crank also went through and chamfered all the oil holes on the rods, which was really nice of it, or on the rod journals, which was really nice of him. I don't know if anybody was along for the assembly of the 292, but we had a couple spots on that crank that had little sharp edges on those oil holes and ate the bearings. Oh, that's tight. That gets to the top. Okay. These guys right here. Don't drop them down into the engine. A little tapping hammer. I don't know what the clearance is, but just looking at the plastic gauge, it looks pretty good. Can you see that? Let's see if we got oil clearance. Crankshaft journal specs. Yep, we do. 454. And bearing journal. Connecting rod journal. Oil clearance. 0.0009 to 0.0025. See what we got. Yep, we're good. You do enough of these, you look at them and you can get to where you can. There you go, you can see it. You get to where you can visually say, yeah, that's pretty good. So, okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're gonna drop this. Ooh, it's not easy to push my hand. We're gonna drop this piston back down. There it goes. That little suction going there. Use the wood so you don't put an oopsie on the crank. And don't knock it all the way out of the board. Check that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now I want to lube that bearing. And I use the old Permatex Ultra Slick. Come on, baby. Plenty of it on there. Just tap her back up in place. Scrape that plastic gauge off there. Fine. Put some lube on the bearing cap. Nuts back on. And we're going to retort this thing. This is a tedious, long job. It probably take most of the day to get all 8 of these pistons in here and get them all checked. Because every one of them, like I said, we're doing twice. Torque wrench is reversible, but my advice is do not use your torque wrench to loosen things. Okay. 1 down, 7 to go. I'm just going to wipe this journal off on this side. Just want to plastic gauge that dude. Or not, you know, on a new crank, you probably could get away with plastic gauging 1 piston on each journal, but I'm going to go ahead and do them both. Okay, let's spin this back over. And these big blocks are heavy. Okay, so what we're going to do is I want to wipe this, take a little brake clean, wipe this cylinder out, clean rag, fresh oil. What's up, sweetie? She's sneaking up on me. You don't have to be quiet. I know who you are. And then, oh, this side. We're going to do number 7. Assemble the piston and put it in. So let me clean the cylinder up, and then I meant to show piston assembly, ring assembly before, and I forgot to hit record, so we'll do that in just a minute. Okay, so cylinder 7 is nice and cleaned up and oiled, and what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to put these rings on his pistons. I know you've probably seen this a million times on YouTube, but I guess this is aimed more maybe some RV people that are watching this that haven't dug into engines as much as mechanical people who have. So let me get another clean rag. When you're putting an engine together, you go through a lot of rags, because I try not to wipe dirt onto dirt. So we're on number 7 here. I cleaned all these up real good. I wiped them down with brake clean. I blew them off with air, so just want to make sure all the crud is off of them. One last check on the ring lands. Oop, one spot right there. A little spot of carbon. Get that out of there. Okay. So we got 3 rings, like a 3-ring circus. You got your oil ring on the bottom. Oil ring is 3 parts. It's the little ridged thing, and it's, can you see that? There we go. So oil ring is a little ridge dude, and then you got 2 of these rings that go on either side. They're not directional, so there's no up or down to them. I'll just kind of roll them in there. Oops, get on there, baby. As you get it in there, just gotta make sure, roll it around, make sure it's free. So on these oil rings, when I took them apart, I never like line up the openings of the rings, like where the ring splits. So I'll put one opening on one side of the piston, the other opening on the other side of the piston. Interestingly enough, on the oil rings, they were on top of each other, which I don't particularly like doing that, so we're not going to. Now, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, that's that ring. Now, your top ring, your number 1, is not directional, can go up or down. If you see that, the profile of the edge of the ring is perfectly rectangular. On your second ring, it is directional. There is a beveled side. So if you got 3 squared sides and 1 45 side. So your 45 side usually goes down, and the way they usually mark that is they'll put a dot on the top of the ring. So on the last one, but there's not. So I just dug an old ring out, and look, this is a number 2 ring. There's a dot on the top, and there are your beveled edges on the bottom. So that's the way to do it. But now, as I'm looking at the camera, it says top right there, and it is beveled edge down. So I put the other one together right. So that's good. So I got this little ring expander tool. You can just kind of roll them on there, and I used to do that because I said, you never break them, and then I broke one. So I went up and bought one of these. I just kind of spread that dude out. Walk it down to the right groove. Get it in there. Roll it around, make sure it doesn't hang up anywhere. Feels good. So I got my opening there. My number 1 ring, I'm going to put the opening on the other side. $180 opposed from each other. Now I just kind of roll that around. Make sure we're not catching anywhere. It feels pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going to take my, if you look on this piston, so you got a dot on the piston, that should go to the front of the block. And then if you look at the the rod cap, it's got these little tabs on them, and these tabs should go to the outside of the journal. So on one side of the block, these tabs will be on this side because it's the outside of that journal. On the other side of the block, the tabs would be on this side, outside of the journal. You don't want these to the inside of the journal. Some pistons, they won't even, you can't even put them on that way. So all right, let's get some oil on that rag. Let me put a little more in there. I'll oil that ring compressor up. Make sure it slides good when it's in there. Gonna keep me a clean oil rag here. I keep saying, every time I put a motor together, I'm going to get rid of this old junk ring compressor and my junk valve spring compressor and buy some new ones next time I put a motor together. And then I go to put another motor together and I just don't. So, well, we'll use them one more time. One more time. Spread this guy out. Come on, man. Get on there. Take it down to the bottom of the skirt. And we're going to crank this dude down. Oops. Good and tight. Okay. That looks good. Now we're going to take the cap off. Wipe. A lot of people will say you need to put a piece of rubber hose over these bolts so you don't scratch the crank. I've never done that and never had a problem. I'll show you how. Just want to get this up flat. Number 7. So I have the crank journal at the bottom of its throw, so it's furthest away from the cylinder. I'm gonna put this guy in here like that. And I use a wooden handle or like a rubber fiberglass handle. Tap these down in there. Now I'm nowhere near the journal. So now we're going to flip her back all the way over. There's crud falling out of those water jackets. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I need to get the bearing insert in the bottom and the bearing insert in the top. And we'll plastic gauge this thing dry. Okay. Nice thing with these big engines is you can get a couple of hands in here to do things. Get her down in there, nice and square. Okay. Now I'm going to hold that, make sure I don't hit that crank journal, and tap it up here with this wooden handle. If you want to put a piece of rubber hose on there, you're certainly welcome to, but I'll just do it this way. Okay. Now we're going to put a little piece of plastic gauge on there. I got enough to do the whole motor. Yeah, I should have. The green stuff is right within the right clearance for this motor. Put that guy on there. For those of you who don't know, plastic gauge is, that's what it looks like. It's just a piece of wax rope, and as you put it in there, you tighten it down, it smushes, and then there's a little gauge on there that you measure the clearance when you take it back apart. So, whoops, and you got to put a bearing in there. Like I said, this can be an all-day job, putting 8 pistons in this thing, plastic gauging them all, because every one of them you're taking the rod apart twice, or putting it together twice. Alright, tabs on the outside, like we talked about. Right. 50 foot-pounds of torque. Oop, I already did that one. Okay. Take it back apart. Tell you what, I'm not going to set the nuts on that oil filter because I just foresee me dropping one of them down in there. It's going to happen if I keep doing it. We'll put them over here. That way I can drop them down inside the engine. And if I give him a little tapping hammer, let's get that dude back apart. Come on now. Big screwdriver, where you at? It's like never fun to try to get these back apart. There we go. Ah, bearing's still on there. Suction down there. Darn it. Come on. There. Okay. And I can see that we're going to check it, but it looks good. See our plastic gauge right there. We should be just a hair over 2 thousandths. And we are. So that looks good. So now we just drop that back down. Just like we did earlier, we're going to lube it, crank it back down for good, move on to the next cylinder. So I'm not going to show you all the cylinders, but that's kind of the complete process to do each one. Once I get this one torqued down, I am going to roll this crank over and just kind of make sure everything moves smooth in the cylinder. Every pair of pistons I do, we're going to, what I usually do, I put a rag on the crank snout and just take a pipe wrench and roll the whole assembly over just to make sure everything's moving smooth, nothing feels like it's binding. So let me get all that done and then we'll take another look at it and I'll see how much time we have left on this video and we'll go from there. Okay, so I guess we're going to stop right here. I'm one cylinder away from getting this together, but you know, I can't do the other stuff until I get that in. I was going to clean up some more parts and I thought, you know, it's supposed to get cold this week, so I think I'm just going to focus the rest of the day on getting my heater hooked up and working. So I'm sure probably nobody wants to see that, so I'll spare you that one. Anyway, let's go inside. Let's get a word from the Lord, and that'll be it for this week. Hey everybody, thanks for coming along on the latest video, and got quite a bit done out there. Excuse me. But yeah, I can't believe they're missing that ring out of a factory package pack of rings. So I guess whoever's putting that together at the Engine Tech factory, I don't know if they do it with a machine or by hand, but you missed one, so don't do that again. And hopefully they'll, Rock Auto or Engine Tech or whoever's going to send that thing will get it to me soon. So after I got done with that, I got my furnace up and working, which is cool, because I'm going to need it pretty soon. And then I went back and cleaned some parts, the oil pan, timing cover, a couple other things. So just kind of did what I could to get ready for the rest of reassembly. So anyway, on to our message. So I was reading, we are studying the book of Matthew in church, so oddly enough, that I'm reading the Bible in chronological order. I just happen to be at Matthew. So when I was reading this week, I've been using this apologetics Bible I talked about, and I came across this article. There's like different articles in the scriptures as you read, and this one is called "Who Are You to Judge Others?" And I think this is a really good one for where we are now these days, because one of the things you hear a lot is don't judge people, or who are you to judge me, or think of yourself, who am I to judge anybody? And it kind of depends on what the word judge is, how we're defining it. So Matthew 7:1 is probably the most frequently quoted Bible verse today. Do not judge so that you won't be judged. And it's been twisted to mean to say that someone's action, we can't say someone's actions or lifestyle is wrong. And that is not what it means. And when someone says don't judge, they are judging you for judging someone else. You've done wrong by saying someone else has done wrong. Clearly, we can't escape making moral judgments. Furthermore, in the same context of the oft-quoted text, Jesus made a moral judgment about certain persons using metaphors about dogs and pigs. That's Matthew 7:6, stressing that we shouldn't continue to present God's grace to those who persistently scoff and ridicule. That's a tough message, but that's what he said. At some point, we must shake the dust off our feet and move on to a more receptive audience. On the other hand, Jesus commanded, stop judging according to outward appearances, rather judge according to righteous judgment. Now, how do we resolve the apparent tension? By taking note of the spirit in which we make judgments. Do we think we're superior? That is the attitude that Jesus condemned. Or are we assessing actions or attitudes with a spirit of humility and concern, recognizing our own weaknesses? That's 1 Colossians 10:13. In Matthew 7:5, Jesus told us to first examine ourselves. Remove the beam of wood from your own eye. Then we can help our brother or sister take the splinter out of their eye. So there is a problem to be dealt with, but only after self-examination. The wrong kind of judging is condemning. The right kind of judging is properly evaluating moral or doctrinal matters with a humble and helpful attitude. In 1 Corinthians 5:5, judging, even excommunicating, is required in light of a church member's shameless sexual misconduct, and that is the story where the guy was that he was sleeping with his mother-in-law, and they kicked him out of the church for it. But in 2 Corinthians, they're admonished for not letting him back in after he has repented. So keep that in mind too. We should treat others the way we want to be treated, thinking there, but for the grace of God go I. So when discussing judging with others, first clarify what you mean by the word judge. This can serve as the context for clarifying right and wrong kinds of judgment. Further, we must take care to avoid the who am I to say so-and-so is wrong. We talked about that at the beginning. We can't shrink away from making moral judgments, nor can we escape them, lest we declare it wrong to say another is wrong. So one thing I believe, and Scripture talks about, is how we talk to the unbeliever. So the unbeliever don't know what they don't know. So my thoughts, and I believe it's scripturally accurate, is that we don't point out people's sin when we're dealing with unbelievers. Our job there is to tell them about the love of Jesus, and tell them that He died for them, and encourage them to pray for them, and pray with them, hopefully to bring them to Christ. And this kind of judging, what he's talking about, is believer to believer. I think a good example of this would be if I have let's just say I have a friend in church, another couple who's cheating on a guy's cheating on his wife, and I would find out about it. And I can approach that two ways. I can go to him, or I can gossip it and spread it all around, which is the absolute wrong way to go about it. or I can go to him and say, hey brother, you know, let's go to lunch, you know. And when I get him alone, just say, hey, you know, I know something's going on. I love you and I care for you and I'm praying for you, but you need to make this right, you know, especially you need to make this right with your wife, and just encourage him to do the right thing. And I'm pointing out that bad behavior in a loving and Christian way, not because I think I'm better than him, but because I truly care for him. And hopefully he's receptive to that. And if he's not, then Scripture tells us where to proceed from there. So anyway, that's the message for today. Don't be afraid to point out behaviors in that context. Pray about it before you do. Make sure that's what the Holy Spirit wants you to do and is leading you to do. Yeah. So anyway, let's have a word of prayer. Father, I just thank you for this time together today, and thank you for all those out there watching and listening to this video, and that just thank you for leading me to this message. And I just think it's the one that you want it to be heard, and not only that you would give us discernment for when you want us to talk to someone regarding behavior, but also that we would be receptive if we are the one that needs to be on the receiving end of that talk. That we would be humble and open to listening, and you know, that we would know that we'd be coming from a loving place if you were the one that prompted that person to talk to us. So anyway, we ask this in the name of your precious Son, Jesus. Amen. All right, so hit like, hit subscribe. Thanks everybody for following along on this, and next video, hopefully we've got the other oil ring, and we'll get that together, and we'll get the heads on this thing and see where we're going with it. So catch you on the next one.